Ethan Miller was a quiet man who lived in a small town surrounded by open roads, gas stations, and dusty fields. He worked as a mechanic in a tiny garage beside the old highway. Most of his days passed with the sound of engines, the smell of oil, and the sight of worn tires. His clothes always had small grease marks, and his hands were rough from years of work. He did not talk much, but people in town trusted him because he was honest and never charged more than what was fair. Ethan's life had been simple since he lost his parents in an accident 6 years ago. He lived alone in a small house on the edge of town, cooked basic meals, and spent evenings watching the same old shows. He had few friends, and most of them had families of their own. He didn't go out much, and deep down he carried a quiet loneliness that he never admitted to anyone. One night after finishing work late, Ethan sat at his desk with a cup of cold coffee. He scrolled through his phone looking at car parts online when a notification popped up from a friend's social media post. It was about a charity auction being held in the town's community center. The message said the event was raising money for the St. Mary's Hospital Children's Wing, where many children with serious illnesses were being treated. People could place bids for small experiences like a dinner, a cooking class, or an art session, and the money would go to the hospital. Ethan wasn't the kind of man who joined such events, but something made him click on the link. The list of auction items was long and strange. He scrolled through until his eyes stopped at one title that said, "An Evening with Lila," for hospital fundraiser. The picture showed a woman standing near a garden, smiling faintly. There was something gentle and sad in her eyes. The description simply said she was volunteering to help raise funds for her little brother's treatment. Ethan stared at it for a while. He thought maybe he could help, even if only a little. It wasn't about meeting someone. He didn't expect anything from it. He just wanted to do something kind. So without thinking much, he placed a small bid. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was what he could afford. He clicked "Confirm Donation," closed the site, and went to sleep, thinking nothing more about it. The next day, the garage was busy. Ethan fixed a couple of cars, changed tires, and helped an old man whose truck had broken down. By evening, he was exhausted. He cleaned his hands, packed up, and was about to close the shop when he heard a soft knock at the door. It was already getting dark. He turned and saw a woman standing near the entrance, holding a small purse. Her brown hair was tied back and her eyes looked tired but warm. She spoke quietly, almost nervously. "Are you Ethan Miller?" she asked. He nodded, wiping his hands with a cloth. "Yes, that's me. Can I help you?" She hesitated before speaking again.
"You paid for me?"
"Now finish it." Ethan froze for a second, confused by her words. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" She smiled weakly and explained. "You placed a bid in the hospital fundraiser. My name is Lila. They told me you were the donor who won the evening. I just wanted to thank you in person." Ethan's face turned slightly red. He hadn't expected anyone to actually show up. I didn't realize it worked like that," he said awkwardly. "I thought it was just a donation." Lila laughed softly. "It's okay. Most people think that. Usually we just spend a bit of time together, talk, maybe share something simple. It's just to make the event more personal." Ethan nodded, still unsure what to do. "Well, I was just closing up, but if you don't mind the noise, you can come in." She stepped inside the small garage, looking around at the scattered tools, the smell of oil, and the sound of rain tapping the roof. She didn't seem bothered. She found a small chair near the workbench and sat down. Ethan poured her a cup of coffee from his old thermos. It wasn't great coffee, but she thanked him anyway. They began to talk slowly, almost like two strangers learning how to speak again. Lila told him about her brother, Tommy, who was 9 years old and had been in and out of the hospital for months. He had a heart condition, and their mother worked double shifts at a laundry to cover bills. When the hospital started the fundraiser, Lila offered to volunteer in any way she could. She thought if she could raise even a little money, it would make a difference. Ethan listened quietly. He wasn't good with words, but his eyes showed real care. "That must be hard," he said. "Taking care of your brother and working at the same time." She smiled faintly. "It is, but he's the only family I have left besides my mom. I can't give up." The rain grew heavier outside and lightning flashed for a moment, lighting up the small garage. Ethan offered to drive her home when the rain stopped, but she said she'd wait a little longer. To pass time, she asked him about his work. He showed her the half-fixed car he was working on, An old red truck. He explained how he rebuilt engines from scrap parts, and she watched with interest, asking questions even though she didn't really understand mechanics. As they talked, her nervousness faded. She started to laugh softly at his shy humor, and for the first time that day, Ethan smiled without forcing it. Hours passed without either of them noticing. The storm outside quieted, leaving only the soft sound of dripping rain. When Lila stood up to leave, she thanked him again. "You probably didn't expect this kind of meeting," she said, smiling. "But I'm really grateful. People like you keep the hospital running." Ethan nodded. "I just wanted to help. You don't need to thank me." She started to put on her jacket, but as she reached for her bag, her sleeve slipped back slightly. Ethan's eyes caught a glimpse of something on her wrist, faint marks and bandages that didn't look new. She noticed his eyes and quickly pulled her sleeve down. He hesitated. "Lila, are you okay?" She froze for a moment, then forced a small smile. "It's nothing. I just had an accident at work." Ethan wanted to ask more, but she looked away, her eyes suddenly distant. "Please," she whispered, "and don't ask. It's nothing." Her voice trembled slightly, and he knew she didn't want to talk. So he nodded silently. "All right," he said softly. "Just take care of yourself, okay?" She smiled again, though her eyes looked sad. "I will. Thank you, Ethan." She stepped out into the wet street, opening her small umbrella and walking away into the fading rain. Ethan stood at the door for a while, watching her disappear around the corner. He couldn't explain it, but something about her words and her eyes stayed with him long after she was gone. That night he sat in his small living room, staring at the wall. The clock ticked slowly. He thought about her brother in the hospital, about her tired smile, and about those bandages she tried to hide. It bothered him, not because of curiosity, but because he could sense pain she wasn't sharing. He made himself a cup of tea but didn't drink it. His thoughts wandered. He had seen people struggle before, broken cars, broken lives, but Lila's pain felt different. It wasn't the kind that made noise. It was the quiet kind that hides behind gentle smiles. The next few days passed, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. He even checked the charity page again, hoping to find more about her or her brother's condition. The page said Tommy was recovering after a recent surgery, and there was a photo of him smiling in a hospital bed. Lila stood beside him, holding his hand, wearing the same faint smile she had the night she came to the garage. That image hit Ethan deeply. It made him realize how much strength it took for her to face the world each day. He thought about how she thanked him for a small donation, even though she was the one who truly gave something that night. Her time, her story, and a glimpse into her pain. 3 nights later, a strange restlessness filled him. He went to the small diner near the town square to grab dinner. When he walked in, his eyes widened slightly. Lila was there, wearing a simple blue uniform, carrying a tray of dishes. She looked surprised to see him, but tried to smile anyway. "Hi, Ethan," she said softly when she walked over to his table. "I didn't know you worked here," he said. "It's just a temporary job," she replied. "They needed extra help for evenings." He nodded, and she took his order. When she brought his plate, he noticed how tired she looked. Her hands shook a little when she poured water into his glass. For a moment, their eyes met, and he saw that same sadness again, like something heavy pressing on her heart. When his meal was over, he left a small tip, more than usual. She tried to refuse it, but he gently said, "Please, for Tommy." Her eyes softened, and she nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan stepped outside, but he didn't drive away immediately. Through the glass window, he saw her talking to a man sitting at the corner booth, a tall man in a black jacket. Her shoulders looked tense, and her smile disappeared. The man said something that made her flinch slightly. Ethan frowned, but didn't want to interfere without understanding. He sat in his truck for a few minutes, watching the rain start again before driving home slowly, his mind filled with questions. Back home, the sound of thunder echoed outside, but all Ethan could think of was Lila's trembling smile in that moment when she said, "You paid for me. Now finish it." He wondered what she really meant when she said those words. Was it just a fundraiser phrase, or was she hinting at something deeper, something she couldn't say aloud? He didn't have the answer, but he knew one thing clearly. Lila was hiding pain behind her calm face, and he couldn't pretend not to notice anymore. He didn't know how he... The next morning, Ethan woke up earlier than usual. The rain had stopped, but the sky still looked gray. He could not shake the image of Lila's worried face from his mind. All night he had been thinking about what he saw at the diner. The tall man, the way Lila looked scared, and how quickly she tried to hide her emotions. Something was not right, and he could feel it deep in his chest. He wanted to help her, but he didn't know how to start. He didn't want to embarrass her or make things worse. He spent half the morning trying to focus on his work at the garage, but every time he picked up a tool, her face came back to his mind. He finally decided to go to the diner again during lunch. Maybe he could talk to her, or at least make sure she was safe. When he arrived, the diner was busy. The sound of dishes clinking filled the air, and people were talking loudly. Lila was there, moving quickly between tables with a polite smile. But something about her seemed different. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. When she noticed Ethan, she hesitated for a moment and then walked over. "Ethan," she said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "You're here again." He nodded, pretending to look at the menu. "Yeah, thought I'd try the pie this time." She smiled faintly. "You picked a good day. It's fresh." But as she turned to walk away, Ethan noticed her hand shaking slightly while holding the notepad. A moment later, the same tall man from the other night entered the diner. He wore a black leather jacket and had a stern expression. The moment Lila saw him, her face lost all color. He sat in the same corner booth, and Lila hurried over to take his order. Ethan watched closely. The man spoke in a low voice, and she nodded quickly, avoiding eye contact. He looked like someone who enjoyed having control, and Ethan didn't like it. When Lila passed by Ethan's table again, he whispered, "Is that man bothering you?" She stopped for a second, her lips tightening. "Please don't ask here," she said softly, her eyes darting to the man. "It's complicated." Ethan didn't push further. He ate quietly but stayed long after he finished, waiting until the man left. When he finally did, Ethan saw relief on Lila's face, but it only lasted a few seconds. As soon as she turned to clean a table, her phone rang. She looked at the screen and her hands trembled. She whispered something under her breath and rushed toward the kitchen. Ethan paid his bill and left, but he parked across the street and waited. About half an hour later, Lila came out of the diner, walking fast with her bag clutched tightly. The tall man's car was waiting by the corner. She got inside quietly. Ethan's chest tightened as the car drove off. He didn't know why, but something inside him told him she was in trouble. He started his truck and followed from a distance. The car stopped at an old building on the edge of town. It was half empty and looked like a place where people rented cheap apartments. Ethan parked a little away and watched. The man got out and went inside first. Lila followed slowly, her head lowered. He waited for a few minutes before driving away, his mind heavy with worry. He couldn't interfere yet, but he knew he had to do something. The next morning, Ethan went to see his cousin Daniel, who worked as a lawyer in town. Daniel was older and known for helping people who were in difficult situations. Ethan told him everything, about the fundraiser, Lila's visit, the bruises, and the man. Daniel listened quietly, then leaned back in his chair. "It sounds like she might be in some kind of financial trap," Daniel said. "If that man is forcing her or using her debt to control her, it's serious. She might be too scared to ask for help." Ethan nodded. "That's what I thought. But how can we help if she doesn't trust anyone yet?" Daniel thought for a moment. "You need her to talk first. Once she tells you the truth, I can help legally. Maybe we can file something to protect her." That evening, Ethan went back to the diner again. This time it was quieter. When Lila saw him, she looked both relieved and nervous. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered as she brought him water. "I just wanted to see if you're okay," he said. She looked around, making sure the manager wasn't near, then sat down across from him for a moment. Her voice was shaky. "You shouldn't get involved, Ethan. It's not safe." He looked at her with concern. "Lila, I don't care about danger. I care about you. You don't deserve to live scared like this. Please, trust me." Tears filled her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. "You don't understand. I owe money I can't pay back. That man, his name is Rick, helped with Tommy's medical bills when my mother couldn't. I didn't know he'd want something in return later." Ethan's heart sank. "He's threatening you?" She nodded slightly. "He says if I don't work for him until it's paid, he'll take legal action and make sure my brother's hospital treatment stops. He even comes to the diner to watch me. I tried to get away once, but he found me." Ethan clenched his fists, trying to control his anger. "You shouldn't face this alone. I know someone who can help you. My cousin is a lawyer." She shook her head quickly. No? If he finds out I told someone, he'll hurt my mother or take my brother away from the hospital. Please don't tell anyone yet. Ethan took a deep breath. Then let me help quietly. Just trust me. I'll figure something out. Lila hesitated, her eyes full of fear and hope mixed together. After a long silence, she nodded slowly. All right, she whispered. But please be careful. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep again. He wrote down everything she told him and brought it to Daniel the next morning. Daniel listened carefully and said, "We can report this, but we'll need proof, messages, threats, or witnesses." Over the next few days, Ethan visited the diner often but stayed discreet. He noticed Rick showing up more frequently, always sitting in the same place, always watching her. Lila looked more tired each day, her eyes dull from lack of rest. One evening, Ethan waited outside after the diner closed. When Lila stepped out, she jumped a little seeing him. "Ethan," she said softly, "you shouldn't wait for me." He smiled gently. "Just wanted to make sure you got home safe." As they started walking toward the parking lot, Rick's car pulled up suddenly. He stepped out, anger written on his face. "What are you doing here?" He barked at Lila. Ethan stepped forward calmly. "She's just heading home." Rick glared at him. "You stay out of this." "She owes me. Don't make it worse." Ethan didn't move. "You can't talk to her like that. Whatever deal you had, it ends tonight." Rick took a step closer, his tone threatening. "And who's going to stop me?" "You?" The tension grew thick. Lila's voice broke through the silence. "Please, both of you stop." But Rick didn't listen. He raised his hand slightly, pointing at Ethan. "If you mess with me again, I'll make you regret it." Ethan didn't reply. He just looked at Lila and said quietly, "Go inside. Call my cousin's office tomorrow morning. Tell him everything." Rick cursed under his breath and stormed off, his tires screeching as he drove away. Lila was trembling, tears running down her cheeks. Ethan gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "It's over now," he said softly. "We'll make sure he can't hurt you again." The next day, with Daniel's help, Lila filed a report. The police took her statement seriously after finding threatening messages on her phone. Rick was investigated for illegal money lending and intimidation. Within a week, he was taken into custody. Lila cried when she heard the news. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "If you hadn't stepped in, I would still be living in fear." Ethan smiled gently. "You don't need to thank me. You were brave enough to tell the truth. That's what saved you." The days that followed were calmer. Lila started focusing on her job again without looking over her shoulder. Her brother Tommy's health improved slowly, and Ethan visited him at the hospital once, bringing him a toy truck. The boys' laughter filled the room, and Lila's eyes sparkled for the first time in a long while. Weeks passed, and the two of them grew closer. Sometimes she would stop by Ethan's garage with coffee and lunch. They would sit together, talking about simple things, the weather, her brother's progress, or funny things that happened at work. Ethan found peace in those moments, and Lila found comfort in knowing she finally had someone she could trust. One quiet afternoon, she came to his shop carrying a small bag. "I brought sandwiches," she said with a smile. Ethan grinned. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," she replied. "You helped me get my life back. It's the least I can do." They sat on the steps outside the garage, watching the cars pass by. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt easy, like they both understood something without needing words. After a moment, Lila looked at him and said softly, "That first night when I came to see you, I thought I was just repaying a donation, but I found something else instead, someone who cared." Ethan turned to her, his expression calm but warm. "And I found someone stronger than she ever believed she was." Lila's eyes glistened as she smiled. "You think so?" "I know so," he said simply. The sun began to set, painting the town in shades of gold and orange. Lila leaned back, breathing deeply as if finally free. For years, her life had been full of fear and burden, but now, for the first time, she felt peace. Ethan looked at her, remembering the words she said that first night. "You paid for me. Now finish it." Back then, he didn't understand what she meant, but now he realized the truth. It was never about money. It was about kindness, hope, and the quiet strength that people show when life tries to break them. He had paid for a fundraiser evening, but what he received in return was something priceless.